it'd be one thing if we had something to show for it.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything to show for it because the money that the government is spending goes right into the pocket of the military-industrial complex and Wall Street, Big Pharma. It doesn't go into the pockets of working Americans, which is what FDR did. When FDR exploded the deficit, he took the money he was spending and gave it to people. He put money in their pockets. So then they went and spent that money, and that reinvigorated the economy. We did it. The national debt cracked $37 trillion. We did it. So I don't know why Trump doesn't cheer this on like he cheers on the $1 trillion defense budget. We did it. You're going to love it. We got a $1 trillion defense budget. Yeah, that's a failure. Thanks to Thomas Massey says, thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the debt just officially passed the $37 trillion mark. In Trump's year of cost-cutting and efficiency, the national debt soars past $37 trillion. President Trump has plenty of ideas about how he'll address national debt. He'll pay it down through tariffs or offset some of the borrowing thanks to proceeds from his Golden Visa program. He's also said he'll rebalance the debt-to-GDP ratio by growing the economy and would reduce the need for as much borrowing thanks to initiatives like the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. And while no economist will expect the White House to turn around national debt overnight, they also might have hoped for some more robust policies on the issue. This is from Fortune magazine. It's from Fortune magazine saying this. This month, America's national debt surpassed $37 trillion, a record milestone that the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget had previously believed would be hit by 2030. So we did it even sooner. Yay, we did it. We came in under the time frame. They said this wouldn't happen until 2030. We did it in 2025. But one pandemic later, the gargantuan spending the government undertook to steer the economy through the crisis is making its mark. Uncle Sam is adding $1 trillion more to the debt burden every 5 months. During a time of economic growth, it is highly irresponsible to run deficits this large. At this pace, we will run through the recent $5 trillion debt limit increase, the largest in history, in just 2 years. We are no longer in a great recession or a global pandemic, but our fiscal policy keeps acting like we are, said a smarty pants guy. As our debt continues to rise, at some point the financial markets will lose confidence in our ability to overcome the politics to solve this problem. International lenders are watching, and all 3 rating agencies have now downgraded the United States credit. The question is, how many more trillions will we add before we decide to stop? Despite today's unfortunate milestone, it is not too late to act. We should reform our budget before the damage is made even worse. Policymakers have many well-known options to stabilize our debt and put us on a stronger path for the next generation. One of them would be you got to cut the Pentagon budget by at least half. So that would get you $5 trillion in savings in 10 years. $5 trillion would be cut from our budget deficit if all we had to do was cut the Pentagon budget in half.
Yeah, we don't want that. What we want is to crash the country. Yep. I told you, America should be a podcast. It shouldn't even be a country. The goal is the New World Order was about a one world government. I don't know why people think when they show you Star Trek, what is it? Earth is a government. They want that, and we're going to that no matter what. And they've been saying it to you over and over again, 20 different ways.
The White House deputy press secretary countered Fortune magazine by saying America's debt-to-GDP ratio has actually declined since President Trump took office. And as the administration's pro-growth policies of tax cuts, rapid deregulation, more efficient government spending, and fair trade deals continue taking effect and America's economic resurgence accelerates, the ratio will continue trending in the right direction. That's on top of the record revenue that President Trump's tariff policies are bringing in for the federal government. Peterson isn't alone in his concern. Over the past few years, alarm bells are increasingly being rung by some. I mean, it's just, I get that this guy has to do this. He's a press secretary. He has to say that stuff. Mm-hmm. He has to say, no, it's actually good. Everything's great.
No, I know. It's great. The Gaza genocide's good.
That's like telling a carjacking victim, no, crime is down.
How much can they do this to you in front of your dumb face before you understand where you live?
So over the past few years, alarm bells are increasingly being rung by some of the most notable names in finance and economics. J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon believes it's the most predictable crisis in history. Ray Dalio believes it will trigger an economic heart attack. And the usually neutral Jerome Powell says it's past time for an adult conversation about the issue. Thus far, the White House cost-cutting and revenue-raising initiatives haven't been without success. At the time of writing, Doge's savings calculator claims to have axed $202 billion from the government's bottom line. Yeah, but they didn't actually cut that money from the government's spending. They actually just took that spending and folded it into the Pentagon and exploded the Pentagon budget by $200 billion. So there's no savings from Doge. This bullshit story that I keep bumping into, people say, no, there were Doge cuts. They didn't cut the actual spending. They just took that money that they were spending through USAID and they folded it into the Pentagon or the State Department. They didn't cut the spending. So I hope people understand this. They did not cut the spending. They, in fact, increased the spending. We went from an $800 billion or a $700 and something billion defense budget to $1 trillion defense budget. Does that sound like a cut? That's not a cut.
Medicaid's getting cut, though.
However, given the fact that debt per capita at the time of writing sits at a little over $108,000 per person in America, so if you divvied up the $37 trillion debt by 330 million people, I guess it comes out to $108,000 per person. Likewise, President Trump's tariffs have generated significant returns in the past few months. This week, the CRFB reported tariff revenue into the U.S. has more than tripled from approximately $7 billion last year to $25 billion this year. Such figures are not to be sniffed at. Wherever you come down on the debate about whether American consumers or foreign counterparts will be paying the price, the revenues are expected to continue rising. Hey, I'm willing to cut Trump slack on his tariff program. Turns out he got a great deal with the European Union. Turns out. I'm willing to let him do all these things, but you then have to cut the deficit. You have to cut the Pentagon spending. And they're not. They're raising extra money and then spending more, which is why the deficit is exploding. So it's good that he's raising revenues. That said, $25 billion still equates to less than 0.07% of the national debt. If the U.S. continued to plow every penny of its current tariff revenue into national debt as it stands, it would still take 120 years to pay it off. And of course, that figure and its respective interest payment is going up by the minute. All of the above comes ahead of the issue of President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which the Congressional Budget Office estimates will add $3 trillion to the federal deficit between 2025 and 2034. But that's on top of that's $3 trillion on top of the trillions of debt already predicted. Okay, so that's $3 trillion on top. That's not just $3 trillion. We're adding $1 trillion to the deficit every 5 months.
Yeah. I better switch to that global digital currency when it comes out, right?
So that's $3 trillion on top. So Fortune magazine is giving a very generous article to Donald Trump here. This is very generous. The White House counters that the act will rebalance the all-important debt-to-GDP ratio, which is the fundamental concern of economists. The ratio is key because it signals to foreign investors whether the growth and size of America's economy is enough to balance its debts. If the ratio falls too out of balance, foreign buyers of American debt may fear they won't receive their returns or demand higher interest rates to offset the risk. The government can take action on either side of the ratio to rebalance the books. It can either increase growth to bring down the disparity or cut spending to reduce the debt. Never going to cut spending.
As long as global trade is not interrupted, right?
Yes. The current ratio is at 121%. The St. Louis Fed reported. That's down from The fourth quarter of 2024 was at 122%. And the White House insists this will fall further to 94% because of the big, beautiful bill will generate economic activity. President Trump is supersizing hardworking Americans' paychecks and restoring fiscal sanity, helping solve our debt crisis for the long run. I don't know about that supersizing people's paychecks. I'd like to see where that's happening. So,
as compared to before, they always do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's an outrage that they walk back, not all the way, but we still progress to you getting fucked no matter what.
The U.S. total debt has officially crossed $37 trillion for the first time in history. That puts the total U.S. debt up plus $780 billion since the debt ceiling was raised following the signing of the Big Beautiful Bill Act on July 4th. So they've already added almost $1 trillion since they signed the bill to the debt.
Yeah.
They've added $750 billion to the debt since they signed the Big Beautiful Bill.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to have to conquer space to pay this debt.
This equates to an average rise of $22 billion per day in the debt. Last week alone, the government sold $724 billion in treasuries through 10 auctions. The U.S. debt crisis is worse than ever. Breaking national debt just hit $37 trillion. Not just a number, but a bill our kids can't afford to pay. That's from Representative Nancy Mace. And then she got community noted. Representative Mace voted aye on House Resolution number 1, which is estimated to increase the national debt by $4.5 trillion.
Yeah, she's another phony, like Krav Maga, Muhammad Ali. They're all phonies. They're all going to do the thing and tell you something different. Except for, ironically, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie.
Isn't that funny? Melanie Durago says, fun fact, Donald Trump is responsible for 21.4% of the national debt. Grok, is this correct accusation? Based on U.S. Treasury data, the national debt rose from $19.95 trillion on January 20th, 2017, which is when Trump became president, to $27.75 trillion on January 20th, 2021, when he left. So that's an increase of $7.8 trillion under Trump in his first term. And then as of August 7th, 2025, it's to $37 trillion. So his share is about 21.1%. The 21.4% claim is a close approximation, though. Responsibility involves Congress, too.
Yeah. So my guess, Jimmy, is they're going to run it into the ground, and when everybody's at their lowest point, they're going to come out and go, hey, we just invented unlimited energy or some. Yeah. They're going to bust out some shit they already had. But first, they're going to do the dialectic. They're going to lower you to as low as you can get, and then they're going to be your savior. The way they got Jordan Peterson, for example. He went to his lowest point, and then they come and be your savior.
I mean, it would be one thing if they were like if Trump's when he's spending that extra $200 or something billion on the military. It'd be one thing if they took that money that we're spending on debt, $1 trillion every 5 months, and put it into our country. Like it would be one thing if we like, hey, look, we built $1 trillion in affordable housing in the last 5 months. Hey, we built $1 trillion in schools and parks and high-speed rails, $1 trillion worth in the last 5 months.
Invested in our infrastructure.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. Hey, we built drug treatment programs for people, and we built mental health facilities for the mentally ill on ours. Hey, we in the last 5 months we spent $1 trillion. Man, it'd be one thing if we had something to show for it.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything to show for it because the money that the government is spending goes right into the pocket of the military industrial complex and Wall Street, Big Pharma. It doesn't go into the pockets of working Americans, which is what FDR did. When FDR exploded the deficit, he took the money he was spending and gave it to people. He put money in their pockets. So then they went and spent that money, and that reinvigorated the economy. That's the story I've been told by history.
Well, that and a war. That and a war. False flagged us into. That is just that. They're all part of the global thing.
But it'd be one thing if they were spending this money on our country. They're not. They're spending this money and putting it in the pockets of a handful of billionaires.
Well, the only reason FDR was able to get away with doing that at all was because a collection of actual fascists tried to overthrow the government
Yeah.
Okay, that's what Smedley Butler reported on. And so
Yeah.
FDR, much like Trump, instead of exposing them all and putting them in a wood chipper like he shoulda, he used it as a power move to do that thing so you can remember him as a good guy. But they're all part of the top. You are a cow, or you could maybe be a dog, but you're not a pig like them. And so every president's like, I'm going to go in and be the hero and do the good thing. They'll allow you or they won't. Or you'll catch them making a big mistake, like trying to overthrow the country for fascism, and then you'll be allowed to do some liberal things. That's how it works.
So if you'd like to hear my jokes about this, you can see me in Rutherford, New Jersey, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Chicago, South Bend, Indiana, Louisville, and Appleton, Wisconsin. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Come see us on tour in Rutherford, New Jersey, New York, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Appleton, Wisconsin, Rosemont, Chicago, Louisville, Kentucky, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.